Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Monday morning. It's October 26th, 2015. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Willie Lawson Show here on iHeartRadio. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you giving us a listen. Today, or this morning, I'm going to spend a few minutes on how I think conservatives should move forward looking into the 2016 elections. Because I think that we have, as conservatives, we have a fantastic opportunity to win not only the White House, but hold on to the Senate and the House and some governorships and win up and down the ballot. See, I look at the election, and a lot of you are looking at the election as just the president. But I'll tell you what, that's not nearly enough. That's operating out of emotion and not strategy or strategery, as one of my favorite presidents has said in the past. I love that word, strategery. I think that that we have to look at this on a more holistic level. That we have to look at it from the bottom to the top. And on the bottom may be a city council, county commission race, all the way up to the presidency. Because if you don't look at it like that, if you don't look at the whole of it, then you miss something. Then what you do is that you may win the battle, but end up losing the war. And I think that that's a lot of what we've done here in the past little bit. That we have indeed won these battles, but we have not won the war. Because we haven't really gotten what I call, and a lot of people call in politics, a second string, a B team, a set of reserves, replacements. We haven't. We have, in some cases, even because conservatives are so unhappy with the Republican choice, sort of given it over to liberal Democrats, socialists, leftists, because we've thrown our hands up. And that's frankly what happened in the past couple of elections, and I just don't understand. I'm somebody who hates to lose. People say, people who know me personally go, Willie is such a nice guy. I found out, and I was, and I'm not mentioning this to break my arm, patting myself on the back. But somebody said to me, somebody important to me said to me politically that I don't have any negatives. When people mention my name, they people say I like him. So I'm a generally liked person, which is a blessing. I frankly, before you turn the computer off, let me tell you where that's from. It's because I try to have God's light show through me. So it's not me they see most of the time. It just isn't. It's not the ugliness of me that they see most of the time. It's the glory of God shining through my life. So, and I try to be pleasant. If nothing else, I try to be pleasant. I like to make people feel at ease. So yeah, all these things combined, I have very low negatives. I'm not Hillary Clinton. I'm not Donald Trump. But we miss, even that, we miss something because we leave things out. We leave the job undone. So it blows me away that 4 million Republicans and 4 million conservatives stay home because they're upset with the choice. Well, here's a problem with that bit of strategy. All the other conservatives that run and the Republicans that you like that run, you abandoned. They needed your vote for the governor's race. They needed your vote for the state, the state house and the state senate race. They needed your vote for the county commission race. They needed your vote for the city council race, the mayor's race, the soil and water commission, whatever it was, and you weren't there for them. because you had decided, because you'd watched enough Fox News and CNN to toss your hands up and got convinced through Facebook and Twitter and Alex Jones that it was the end of the age. So all the people that you could have had to make our lives better in this country and develop a second team, a B team, a set of conservative replacements for the Republicans that are in office now, in high office, you abandoned. You abandoned. You know, the phrase that we get the government that we deserve, that we deserve is very, very true. And you know what, you abandoned them, and then you proudly say, I stayed home. I didn't participate in that. Go me. I'm so smart. Well, frankly, to add to my negatives this morning, you're a dumbass. You're a dumbass. Because in your pseudo intelligence and you rising above everybody else, because you're so much smarter, you're so much more conservative, you're so much more a patriot, you abandoned a whole bunch of people that had put their lives out there, who needed your help, and all you had to do was bubble in a circle to help them, but you didn't, because you got all pissy, and you get all your news and information from Alex Jones and your friends on Facebook and Twitter. So you did the thing that you thought was the smart thing to do, which was actually the worst thing to do strategically. The absolute worst thing to do strategically. Now, if you're somebody who just can't vote for the lesser of two evils, now I hear that a lot. You just can't do it. Go to the polls and vote in the elections where your choice is more clear. Don't stay home. Get your ass off the couch. Turn off TV. Turn off Alex Jones. And I'll keep mentioning Alex Jones because the deal is that in my opinion, he's one of the worst of bringing up crap with no solution. And you know what? And you know who else is falling into that? As far as I'm concerned, Glenn Beck is falling into the very, very same thing, and taking other people with them, taking Mark Levin, taking Rush Limbaugh with them. Now, again, these people have huge ratings and are all millionaires, and I'm doing this show out of a back bedroom in my house, which happens to be a mess, by the way. All my fault. But, so yeah, I guess in a way they're ahead of me. And I guess you could say, who the hell do I think I am? That I would say something negative about Alex Jones and Mark Levin and Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh. The problem is that these people don't offer any solutions. There's no strategy. Okay, so you've diagnosed that I've got a broken arm. What are you going to do? You can run around blaming people why my arm is broken, blaming Obamacare that it's going to cost me more money than it might have 5 years ago to get my arm fixed. Yeah, but are you going to fix my arm? Are you going to help me fix my arm? Are you going to develop a strategy by which to fix my arm? You know what, Glenn Beck, it seemed like with him starting the 9/12 movement, I thought, well, that's a good start because that is all local level. But guess what? He started it and then walked away from it. And of course, most 9/12 people got so involved in the national picture following behind Glenn Beck that they forgot that the real power is at the local level. The real power is not in the U.S. House. It's in the State House, and it's in the, it's at City Hall. It's in County Center. That's where their real power is. And they walked away from it. They abandoned it. They don't talk about it. Every 9/12 meeting I've gone to, and let me preface this, the people that I meet in the 9/12 movement are fabulous people. Wonderful people. Especially where I live. I mean, just great folks. Salt of the earth people. I think they miss it, though. Frankly, I think that they really miss where their power is. Their power is not on the national level. Their power is on the local level. If the same amount of people who show up at a 9/12 meeting on a Tuesday once a month could take that very same energy, and show up at a county commission meeting once a month or twice a month, I guarantee things will be different. If they would take that very same energy and help conservative candidates where they live run for things like city council and county commission, no doubt things would be different where they live. And eventually things would be different in the country because these people would move up through the ranks and things would be different. That's where your power is. That's where you have the muscle. It's the local places where you have the connections, where you know the business people, you know the business dynamics, you know the social people, you know the social dynamics of where you live. You know the movers and the shakers. You can sit down and have face-to-face meetings with them. But you choose to abandon that power. It's bad strategy. You may have a good heart, but it's bad strategy. And I think that conservatives have practiced this bad strategy, especially on the national level, at least since 2008. Yes, I was not a fan of John McCain. And as John McCain has sort of come out of his liberal closet, I get it. Believe me. I get it. But with John McCain, what we have, let's think strategically now. With John McCain, we have the Affordable Care Act now. Well, the answer is probably not, right? You probably would not have the Affordable Care Act. Now, maybe Nancy Pelosi and her minion write it anyway and put it before Congress, and it passes the House and the Senate. But we know what? Then at least we have a shot for McCain to veto it. Now, it might have been vetoed, and the veto might have been overridden. That might have happened, yes. But we definitely would have had the pressure from the White House to push the Affordable Care Act. My guess, because we're all guessing here, that we wouldn't have the Affordable Care Act if John McCain was president for 4 years. Do you think that we would have this horrendous Iran nuclear deal if John McCain or Mitt Romney were president? You think? Probably not. You see how you do you? I mean, I know that you have a problem with or numerous problems with both of those men. I understand all that, but if I'm saying something that's not true, hit me up in the chat room here on Spreaker, or send me an email at WLS860@gmail.com if you think I'm wrong. I don't think it'd be the same. As a matter of fact, especially if you look at 2010, where Republicans won the House with the help of the Tea Party movement, and you got a whole bunch of Tea Party conservatives in the House of Representatives. That was a time to push like hell, but that wasn't going to happen because, you see, you'd given up already. You had already turned it over and turned these communities over to the torturers. Because now there's nobody in the pipeline, and a lot of these places there's nobody in the pipeline because you've not supported people at the local level. I like U.S. House races because they're local elections with national implications. I do. 600,000 people in a local area, the same sort of deal. Talking with the movers and the shakers, but if you decide to throw your hands up because the Republican Party doesn't nominate the person that you think they should, then you're screwed. And you've screwed the rest of us as well. That's not a good strategy. If they indeed nominate somebody that you don't agree with, well, hell, don't vote for them. But that doesn't mean that you stay home and you abandon everybody else on the ballot. that you give up your voice, that you mute your voice, that you gag yourself on every other level. School board. If there were more conservatives on school boards around the country, would we be dealing with Common Core? Well, no. But because you don't vote, because you don't get out in those elections, because you don't concentrate on the sewage that's rising up around you, that you get caught up in the same arguments and discussions and focus, and you get distracted by the mainstream media to look to Washington, D.C., that you're as focused on Washington, D.C. as any leftist liberal is. You're as focused on D.C. being the center of the solution as opposed to the solution being downtown in your city council or in your mayor's office or in your local churches. You're as focused on the wrong thing as the left. And that's why things aren't getting better. And if we don't change our strategy soon, where you live will be Detroit, where you live will be Ferguson, where you live will be Harlem, where you live will be just like the places that we see on television that burn in the summertime, because your focus is on the wrong thing. You're focused on the wrong thing. The citizens of Ferguson looking to Washington for help when what they should have done is look to their own city council, look to their own police department, look to the people that they elect, look to the people who run their community. If indeed they think that their police department is racist, then who the hell is running your police department? Who's your mayor? Who's your city council? Because if not, if you look somewhere else outside of your community, the interlopers come in, and that's exactly what happened in Ferguson. And because the interlopers come in and burn your city and then leave you with nothing. They've made their point, they've made their money, and they're out. Why? Because the citizens of Ferguson concentrated on looking for the solution in the wrong place, looking for Black Jesus to come out of Washington to help them. And of course, Black Jesus, Barack Obama, showed up. Didn't help because he wasn't interested in helping, really. Black Jesus didn't say, what you need to do is start looking at your local political officials, holding them accountable, because they were all Democrats, holding them accountable for what happens here in Ferguson. Your solution to these problems are not in Washington, are not in D.C. They're right here on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. Churches, social organizations, fraternities, sororities. That's what the solutions were. And that needs to be our approach. Our approach is that if we've got something going on in our community, it isn't D.C. that we're going to find our relief. We're not. We're going to find our relief right here where we live. Right here where you live. Right there. If you don't like the makeup of your city council or your county commission, get active locally and change it. That has got to be the conservative strategy. Conservatives had a wonderful opportunity, I think, to do great things in 2009, 2010. I mean, the movement matured. And that's what I tell people. Some people said that it went away in 2009 because we didn't have the big rallies. We weren't 1.5 million strong in D.C. We didn't have the big rallies in Chicago and in New York and in L.A. and in Tampa. We didn't have the big rallies anymore, so people thought that the movement went away. Well, the fact of the matter is that the movement started to understand as a thing that it was important to start getting people elected. Well, I'll tell you what, that's harder than going to a park and hearing speeches. Did you hear what I said? That's harder than going to a park dressed in a red, white, and blue T-shirt, waving a flag, hearing speeches. That's harder. Getting people elected, because that requires that you do something other than drive your car somewhere and sit your fat ass on the ground. Did you hear me? Did you hear what I'm saying? So that's harder. So a lot of the people who had been organizing meetings and rallies understood in this groupthink that it's time to start using all these people that come to these rallies. And if we could get them behind conservative candidates, we could make a difference. And in 2010, that's exactly what happened. The unfortunate part is that after the election, the Affordable Care Act was signed into law, and a lot of you, and I'm going to say you because I'm not including me in this. A lot of you caved and gave up because you were having these rallies to stop the Affordable Care Act. Well, that was going to be stupid, right? These rallies were put together by a whole different group of people because the idea was that the movement was maturing and changing and was into getting people elected, and that's where they were going, not to try to stop something that was unfortunately at that point inevitable. Democrats always had the votes. Now, if I'm lying, send me an email and tell me I'm lying. Democrats always had the votes to pass the Affordable Care Act. Always. Since day one of President Obama's presidency, they always had the votes. What they were arguing about was who was going to get what kind of graph, how the pie was going to get cut up, who was going to get some pork for their community, for their vote. That's all they were talking about. They weren't actually talking about not passing the Affordable Care Act. That was never in consideration. Never. And Republicans were scared spitless because, we heard Paul Ryan say that he was, that he was pretty sure that he'd get most of the Affordable Care Act repealed through the reconciliation of the budget process. But you know what? And that had all sort of bravado attached to it. But that was never going to happen because they were scared spitless. Scared spitless. They just didn't know what was going to happen. That would have taken an act of people who had big, huge balls, but no balls were found. And frankly, I didn't think they were going to be either. I thought quite frankly, so you're thinking, well, do I have a solution? Yes, I thought quite frankly, and still think quite frankly, all you can do with the Affordable Care Act at this point is choke it to death financially. That's the only thing you could have done. Once it gets passed, strangle it with no money. And the best part, and the best time to do it was early on. The best time to do it was early on, before it started to seep into the culture. Once it seeps into the culture, it's almost impossible. It's like a weed. It's almost impossible to extract. Because if you spread a weed killer on it, you kill everyone. You kill everything around it. You can't just spray. If you have a weed, you got to spray it right on that weed early. You can't just spray it on your whole lawn. It'll kill your whole lawn. And that's what That's the choice that we're left with the Affordable Care Act, which is why it's important now to make sure that we use a prophylactic approach to our communities to protect them as much as we can from the ravages of the Affordable Care Act and other leftist, Democrat, socialist policies that have come down from Washington in the past 6 years. Think locally. That has got to be our strategy. Think locally. Vote locally. Support locally. And support is more than going to a park, wearing a red, white, and blue shirt and waving an American flag. Support is time. Walking neighborhoods, knocking on doors, talking to the people in your community, actually talking to them, getting up off your wallet, putting a few dollars in the collection plate of some of these campaigns. Making it happen for folks. There isn't any reason, frankly, and I'm going to give an example. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to give an example that'll probably hack some of you off. But you know me, I don't care. We'll be back with more of the Willie Lawson Show here on iHeartRadio right after these messages.
1.5 billion smartphones are waiting for content. Currently, 159 million Americans listen to online radio. Yes, podcasting is here to stay. However, podcasting is more than just sticking a microphone in front of you and talking. Our program, Podcasting for Beginners, will start you with all of the right moves to create a look, feel, and experience that your listeners will not soon forget. Create authority in your industry and connect with new customers with a professional podcast. Isn't that what you want? Join us at Podcasting by Professionals. Our 5-hour program is an easy-to-follow, step-by-step instructional to help you avoid the mistakes that can keep you in a holding pattern for months, even years. Early bird pricing available now at podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Join us and get your name in the game. We're reaching millions.
All right, it's time to buy a house. School year's coming up. It's time to buy a house. It's time to stop thinking about it. It's time to start doing it. And you're wondering, how do we go about buying a house? Do we buy a previously owned house or do we buy a new house? My suggestion is that you buy a new house. That if at all possible, buy a new house, either a new construction home or an inventory home. Because you're going to get more bang for your buck than if you try to make something work. You ever try to do that? Ever try to just make something work and find out that what we figure out is it never really does? But if you're interested in buying a brand new inventory home of a builder or a brand new built from the ground, built from scratch home here in the Tampa Bay area, you couldn't, better not get that process started without talking to my friend Gary from New Homes of Tampa Bay. New Homes of Tampa Bay is ready to walk you through the entire process from rooter to tutor, from the rooter to the tutor, from the front to the back. Because there's lots to know. There is lots to know, and most of the people who are involved and have that information, they all have an ulterior motive. They're trying to sell you their house. They're trying to sell you one of their homes. And what you need is an advocate. You need somebody who's on your side. Just like in the financial world, you need a fiduciary. You need somebody who's working for you, who's looking out for your best interests. And that's what the folks at New Homes of Tampa Bay do. They look out for you. They've got this tool called property process management, that if you're building a brand new construction home, they send a qualified home inspector to the work site while your home is being built to make sure that you are getting all the things that you were promised in the sales pitch, and that they are all of the quality that you were promised. And you know what that cost you? Nothing. Now, they could charge you a lot of money for this process, because you think about it, the peace of mind you get once you get home and you don't have to worry about what's behind the wall of your new home. What's on in the foundation of your new home? Is the plumbing going to go bad in the, under the foundation? Stuff you don't have to worry about. The peace of mind that you gain is well worth $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. How about zero? How about zero? We have gotten so good at this that we've made we have partnered with some of the builders, some of the best builders in the Tampa area. And so we can do all of this for you at no cost to you. That's New Homes of Tampa Bay. That's newhomestpa.com. Newhomestpa.com. 813-770-9452. That's 813-770-9452. And that's newhomestpa.com. We're back with more of the Will Austin Show here on iHeartRadio. We hope that you are having as good a time as we're having here, because I'm having a blast, having an absolute blast. Golly, I love doing this. I love doing this. I love talking to you. I love, I love hearing your feedback. You can give us, you can drop us an email. I know that's quaint. At WLS860@gmail.com. WLS860@gmail.com. If you think that I'm off my rocker, if you think that I've lost my mind, I'd like to hear from you. I really would like to hear from you. All right. I want to talk about Donald Trump for a little bit. I'm going to talk about the national picture for just a second. But I want to talk about Donald Trump for just a little bit. I want to talk about the insanity of looking at Donald Trump as, quote, the front runner. And this is how the mainstream media gets you. This is how, like my son always says, this is how they get you. This is how they get you. We've heard for weeks now, months, Donald Trump is the front runner of the Republican Party. He's got the inside track, blah, 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 blah. And the establishment Republicans, and everybody's buying into this narrative. Mark Levin, Rush Limbaugh, they're all buying into this narrative. Here's the deal. There has not been one single caucus vote. Not one. There's not been one single primary held. Not one. Not one voter has cast a ballot for anybody. Donald Trump, Dr. Ben Carson, Lindsey Graham, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. Nobody has cast a ballot for anyone. And as I remember, in the Iowa caucuses the last time, the winner was Rick Santorum, and Rick Santorum was not leading the polls. He wasn't the front runner. But he won the caucus. Maybe things are not as the mainstream media would have you think they are. This isn't. So they make this kind of be a horse race or a car race. That right now Donald Trump is leading this race. Well, leading what? Nobody's voted for Donald Trump. And how in the hell can you be the front runner? Really, no one's voted for you. No one's put down a ballot for you. And when you only have 25 or to 29% of the polls, which means if you've got 30%, that means that there are 70% of the people, which is a super majority that support somebody else. And if you've only got 25%, that means there's 75% of the people polled support someone else who don't support you. I don't understand why conservatives are being sucked into this narrative that it's Trump or nobody, and that the quote establishment Republicans are trying to submarine his campaign. Why? Because people say, I don't think he's the guy. Because they have an opinion. You can have an opinion, but they can't have an opinion. Okay, so Reince Priebus is not my favorite guy in the whole world. And if you followed my show on Blog Talk Radio for any length of time, you can go back and listen to those archives there at blogtalkradio.com and find out that Reince Priebus is not my favorite guy in the whole world. That the National Republican Party is not my favorite organization in the whole world. Not even close. That I personally wrote an open letter to Reince Priebus shortly after he became RNC chair. And it was not a welcome to Washington, D.C. letter. I have as much problem with the Washington GOP as anybody. Probably more. But they get an opinion too. They get to decide what they think is good for their organization. They get to decide that. And that doesn't make them rhinos. It doesn't. It doesn't make them rhinos. It doesn't make them communists or socialists. It doesn't make them anything. There are Republicans who some of them think that Donald Trump is not good for the Republican Party brand, and he probably isn't. But to buy into the narrative that unless the Republican Party nominates and gets behind and nominates Donald Trump, that the Republican Party is and conservatives are in disarray, is nonsense. And you've got to stop, as a strategic thing, buying into that narrative that the mainstream media is pushing, and that people like Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, and of course people like Alex Jones are also becoming part of it because of their anger and angst towards the establishment Republican Party. I understand all that, but the fact of the matter is that we've got to, as conservatives out here, we've got to rise above all that and see the silliness and the folly of all that. We've got to look at this like, hey, you know what? That's not what's going on here. What's going on here is that these guys and gals are running for president, running for the Democrat and the Republican nomination. And polls don't mean anything. The only poll that matters is the elections. It's the only thing that matters. It's like college football, So what? Right now, not Notre Dame. Oh, God forbid. Ohio State is the number one team in the country. What's that mean, though? What's that mean? If they get into the playoffs, this playoff system is bullcrap too. Anyway, if they get into the playoffs and they lose the first game, they're no longer the number one team in the country. Happened to Florida State last year. Florida State was barely, went undefeated and ended up barely making this sham of a playoffs and got blown out in the first game, and did not end up being the fourth ranked team in the country. Polls are a sham. Let me give you a similar example using my favorite college team in the world. My Florida State Seminoles lost a heartbreaking loss on Saturday to I'm trying to get this memory out of my head, to Georgia Tech. In an awful Michigan-like way at the end of the game, lost the game, did not play well and lost the game, 22-16. And the polls, who had them at 9th in the country, in the top 10, suddenly have them at 17. They went from being in the top part of the ratings to suddenly losing one game, ending up at 17. 17. Below teams with more losses. So you know what polls mean? Polls mean nothing. Polls are like toilet paper. Polls are something you can wipe your ass with. That's what polls are like. So all these polls that have Donald Trump and Ben Carson leading these races is nonsense. It's just nonsense. Nobody's leading anything. And I think that I think as conservatives, strategically, we have to start understanding that and not buy in to that narrative. The fact of the matter is that nobody is leading anything. There's no leading going on. No leading. There have been no elections. If you can say to me in, 6 months that Donald Trump has won 5 primaries across the country, then he would be leading. Or if Carly Fiorina has won 6 primaries and 4 caucuses, then you can tell me that that she's leading. Right now, nobody's leading anything. The race hasn't started, and just because they're all on the let me dumb this down to NASCAR. Just because they're all in pit row, and the bright shiny car, the red car with a yellow roof that you like, is in your mind sitting in the pole position, that doesn't mean that car has won the race. So if you're a fan of Earnhardt Jr. and he's sitting in a pole position at Talladega, that doesn't mean he's won the race. You just don't stop and give him the trophy. They've got to actually run the damn race to find out. The race hasn't started. Everybody's putting their car together. Let me dumb this down to NASCAR for you. Everybody's putting their car together. Everybody's getting their race team, put together. But they haven't run a race yet. You can't call a winner. You can't call a winner, obviously. The race isn't over. So you can't even call a leader because the race hasn't started. Some teams have decided that they can't put a team together and have decided to get out of the race, not race. What they decided to do, not get out of the race. They've decided not to race. They can't put a race team together. They can't get a race car. Again, if I dumb this down to NASCAR, maybe some people will get it. So what we've got to do is not get caught up as a strategic thing, not get caught up in these national discussions of nonsense. We've got to, as a strategic point, look at things as they are in reality and then act accordingly. All right, we got to get out of here. Thanks so much for coming to the Willie Lawson Show here on iHeartRadio. We will be back here probably a little later today, possibly, but tomorrow for sure. The best thing you can do for us, there's 2 things you can do. But the best thing you can do for us is tell your friends, is to share this broadcast with your friends. That's the best thing you do for us. Because if you like it, your friends will like it. That's the best thing you can do for us. The second best thing you do for us, if you like what we're doing, is that if you go to WillieLawson.com, if you hit the donate button over the articles, that will help. That will help too. To keep this thing going, that would help amazingly too. Now we're working on the website. If for some reason it doesn't work, send me an email at WLS860@gmail.com. That's WLS860@gmail.com. And if you don't want to do that and you still want to give, go to blackpac.com. That's BLAKPAC.com. and make a donation there. And they'll make sure it gets to my campaign. All right, we got to get out of here. Just like always, I want you to go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself. Until we see you again, see you.